probably a good idea. Water, please. Yes. Just water. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Am I on? I'll get it a little closer. Is that better? Can everybody hear me? There we go. I just have to speak up. You might have to help me out a little bit tonight. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm thankful for amplification. I don't know if I could teach without it. I'm better now. So thank you for those of you who are praying for me on Sunday, and I'm on the mend. And we're going to discuss something that, thank you very much, Kelly, I've never taught on before. But I really like this subject. So you'll get enthusiasm that might be met with some ignorance. So we'll see if how that blend goes. At least it'll be interesting, I hope, for all of us. Let's pray before we begin. Lord, as we consider what the responsibilities of your church, what the responsibilities are of the governments that you create around the world to bring order and justice, to provide a place for human beings to flourish. I pray that we would think through these things rightly, that even though our minds are affected by the fall, by looking to your word, by reasoning, we might come to some truths that would help us better understand this subject of religious liberty. So guide us, Lord. Help us to see the importance of these issues, and give us grace as we discuss these things together. In Christ's name, amen. Well, let's begin with a little thought experiment. Let's suppose we were creating an ideal society, and we're Christians, and we're creating an ideal society together. What goods do you want to bolster or foster in this ideal society? And by goods, I don't mean products, but good, the good. Just shout some out. Okay, let's be a little more practical. But that's a good one. Fruits of the Spirit's good. Okay. Security, yeah. So think big. We're creating a government here, right? So, okay, family. That's a very good one. So family, marriage, children. Why would family, marriage, and children be important?
You don't have a society after one generation.
There you go. Anybody object to Andy's value that we want to include in our society? All right, so we have to have families in this society so that we can have children. Now, is there a way to propagate children without families?
No. Well, there is. There is, however, it's not.
Good. So we're looking for goods. This is one of the goods, all right? So you mentioned security, Mike? Or
Yes.
Okay, so we've got security, family, and we'll put marriage and children with family. What other goods? Stability. Yeah, we'll put that with security. Justice, thank you. Anybody else study philosophy or political science? Freedom. There you go. Liberty. Good one. Thank you. There are wrong answers, but it's still have fun. This is dinner and discourse. Yeah, Jose.
Punishment, discipline.
Okay, order, justice, discipline. Good.
Fun and entertainment, like have something,
Okay.
lighthearted, not all serious things.
Okay, so some leisure.
Yeah.
A way to provide for leisure. Okay. Education. Very good. How about the economy? Is that important at all? Yeah. So like the government should provide for a healthy economy in some ways
But if you
that
have
we can.
all the others, the economy should be good.
Ooh, that's a debatable, but also very interesting point. So if all these other things are in place, then the economy will. Okay. All right. Any other? How about life? Like, do you want people to stay alive? Yeah. So that's the one thing that we should be working towards. Life. I mean, no one has said yet life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, except for happiness. Okay, we heard happiness, so that's good. What about religion? Just freedom. Okay. This is already getting fun. All right. So you say Christianity, but I mean like religion at all. Should there be a religion? All right.
Not one sanction.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys are jumping the point, but religion's important. Why would religion be important? Or the exercise of religion? Okay. That's right. So defining what is good would need to be promoted, and that promotion is going to come from our understanding of the big things. So religion. All right. So that's one side of it. So here's our happy society beginning. What evils do we want to deter in this? Okay. Yeah. Abortion. Okay, so those things that are the opposite of the goods. So we definitely, what, crime? Right. So we want to injustice. We want to, if we're promoting justice, we want to do those things which silence injustice. Or if we want order, we want to do it with chaos and disorder. We want to, what about family, marriage, and that sort of stuff? Okay, so we're trying to deter, what deterrence would deter those things which would harm family, marriage, children, or harm individuals in society. Anything else we would want to deter those things which would wreck the economy, right? So anything else that we want to deter in this? Okay, drugs, those things that harm people. Okay, yes, more. Right, okay, so very good. Mike,
Restraints on the government.
I was just going to say political uproar.
okay, so recognizing that the government itself could be a source of injustice, we would restrain the government. Okay, so at what point, speaking of government, at what point would this society that we're creating require a government? Like, you know, do we need a government if we can all just agree to stuff as a church, you know, or as a body? Okay. All right, good. So first of all, in order to provide security to this group of people, if they become big enough to be noticed by other nations, we would need representatives, a government to represent us before those other nations or to defend us from those other nations. And then even within decisions we were making amongst ourselves, we need someone to mediate or govern that. All right? Any other reasons why we need a government? Or to provide order, okay, to enforce these values and laws that we've come up with. Someone's got to write the laws. Very good. All right, Josh?
Yeah, very similar. Just, I would say any size, you need some sort of government, whether big or small, to help establish what side of the road you drive on.
There you go. Very good. So in order to provide for order, as did you say that, Karsten, as well, there's got to be a government of some sort. Okay. Now, another question as we're moving along with this thought experiment, by what standard will this government create its laws? What, Georgia? Biblical. So the Bible. All right, so that's a good answer. Very sane answer.
I was going to say America was founded on freedom of religion.
But what standard of good and evil will the government? So when we say no murder is allowed in our just government, in our just, where are we getting that from? Russ? 10 Commandments. Georgia mentioned the Bible. Anywhere? Who said general revelation? Okay, general revelation. We've got one vote for general revelation, which could also be described as natural law. So you've got natural law in the Bible that we can derive some laws from for understanding good and evil. All right, you guys are on the right track. Are you starting to think about what creating a just society might look like and some of the issues that might arise as we're coming up with it. Any other questions or comments before we move on?
This is kind of like the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
The Village?
Yeah, the Village.
actually, that is relevant. Maybe that will come up in a little bit. So when we talked earlier about this society that we have and how religion would be good in this society, should the government that we are saying we're going to need in order to create order, should the government do anything to promote right worship? You understand the question? Good question. Good question. That's asking a question in response to the question. Who's defining what is right worship? It's a good question. No? Any yeses? Yeah, the government should promote right worship.
I think that verb promote, should the government promote? So it seems like should the government facilitate? Should they allow for?
Okay. I'm using the word promote intentionally, but
Okay,
you're,
sorry.
no, I think you're asking the right question though.
Well, there'd be certain things like land. That's like, okay, maybe you give them a break to have the right religion
Yeah.
in certain areas, or like what we would say with taxes, give certain concessions to them.
Okay. All right. Can the government do anything to deter wrong worship?
Yeah.
Yes?
And
Yes?
it's happened in the past.
Well, what about our society that we're creating?
Well,
This would be good. Yeah.
You could let the justice decide that.
What,
isn't that why we have discipline in the church?
good question. All right. Good question. Good. So those are our two questions. Should the government do anything to promote right worship? And I use that in the vaguest way as possible. And can the government do anything to deter, should the government do anything to deter wrong worship? Joel, did you have a...
That's kind of presuming that you can be neutral because everyone's going to worship something, right? So even if, like,
Yeah.
if you're promoting a secular, then it would be blasphemy to be anti-secular,
Right.
So the government's always going to be operating in some regard.
Right. So this is fundamentally, this question is fundamentally what we're addressing when it comes to religious liberty. Does a civil government, that is not a church government, not the family government, but the civil government, the state, does a civil government have the authority to coerce or enforce right worship and deter or punish wrong worship? I know. That's the question. I know. That's what the whole issue is about.
I have an answer for
Yeah.
you, sort of.
Okay. Well, this is just I'll tell you when it's a question I have for you. This is the rhetorical question.
Okay, let me explain.
Jump in. Go ahead.
Henry VIII, King of England,
Uh-huh.
he wanted a divorce, but they were being ruled by the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Therefore, he said, no, kick you out. No, nobody can be Catholics anymore. We're all Protestants, and if you're Catholic, get out.
Right.
So that would be a case of the government
Yes.
dividing right and wrong.
There are many such cases. Yes. And Diane?
And I think the answer is no, because power corrupts. I mean, so many ideas, they start out really good,
Uh-huh.
and then that power just perverts it.
Okay. So Diane doesn't trust the government with this one. Christian, go ahead.
My question is, are we the nation, or are we like
Any government.
any government?
Yeah. We are a people constituting. We're creating a government constitution right now.
But who are the people that are going to belong to the
Yes,
nation? Are they Christians?
At this point, they are. But who knows what happens to the next generation. So let's keep going. Does a civil government have the authority to coerce and enforce right worship and deter or punish wrong worship? Or does that authority belong to some other ruler? You understand the question? So is the issue of right... Annie, why are you looking at me like that? What? Ask your question. Ask your question, or you can't make that face anymore. That's a good question. See that you're adding to the conversation. Thank you. You're confusing me. Oh, it was scowling.
Religious liberty if you have something governing it.
Right. So we're discussing whether or not, our topic tonight is why is religious liberty, and why is religious liberty a Baptist distinctive? Why do Baptists like religious liberty? And so we're getting to that question of why Baptists like religious liberty by kind of exploring what it even is to begin with, which is why I wanted to include you in that thought conversation, or that thought experiment. Thank you. So does the authority over our worship, the human worship, the way that we worship God, she's smiling now. Okay. It's just year one of Del Cerro. I saw that face on a lot of the pews. And so, no, the scowling face. Yeah. So, I know. So, moving on. I've been on NyQuil a lot lately, so. Does the authority over our worship belong to the government or some other ruler? And that's what we're going to be exploring. The Baptist distinctive of religious liberty, or as some would call it, the liberty of conscience, is not about, and here's what, as we get into this is more of a lecture part of it. We'll get back to some discourse. But when we talk about religious liberty, the liberty of conscience, this is not about creating a cornucopia of religious groups in society. So we are not moving forward to explode religious pluralism, we're not trying to proliferate religious pluralism in as many ways as we possibly can, nor is promoting religious liberty suggesting that all religious groups are equal. All right? So it's not trying to create as many religious groups as possible, and it's not saying all religious groups are equal. Just as a side note, when I was in the UK in May, we went to Greyfriars Church. Julie, you went there too, didn't you? You didn't go in the church, though? Okay, so I was in the Greyfriars Church in Edinburgh. Does anybody know what happened at Greyfriars Church in 1638? This is where the Scottish Covenanters signed the first covenant, establishing the nonconformist church. So the Anglican Church in the UK was a state church. Getting back to what Kelly was talking about, and it had become less and less of a church over time. The Scottish Covenanters saw that what was the way that worship was being practiced was unbiblical, as often happens in a state church, and they decided we are going to covenant together and start our own church. And so they did that in the halls, in front of the pulpit of Greyfriars Church in February of 1638. Broke English law by doing that, put their lives at risk, put their families' lives at risk by doing that. And so that location, Greyfriars Church, is a hallowed location for those who believe in the liberty of conscience and the right to worship as God commands. But here's the problem. The people who run that building now, they've mixed up their categories. You walk into the chapel, and there are flags of the Noahic covenant and short-haired women in purple robes and a video on loop that says this is now a place for people of all religions to sit and reflect and meditate. So what's happened there? Well, they took the principle of religious liberty, which is something that should restrict the state's authority, and they said this restriction also applies to the church. The church can no longer have any say into how other people worship. They kind of missed the point, didn't they, in that? As Baptists, we understand that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father except by him. So we would not promote, as Baptists, we would not promote alternative paths to salvation, nor would we condone alternative paths to salvation. So we will say, Islam and Gnosticism and atheism, Buddhism and Judaism, Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, along with liberal progressive Christianity and any other Christ-denying religion, we would say all of those are false. And we would say that with a clear conscience. That's what we believe. We teach against false paths from the pulpit. In discipleship conversations, we have those conversations. But we will also say that government does not have the authority to restrict such religions. Holding to religious liberty is not promoting all religions, but it is acknowledging that we are all, as Joel said earlier, we're all fundamentally worshipers who are accountable to God. So our accountability is to God. We're all worshipers. We're accountable to God. So here's just as just thinking a little bit more about recognizing that we're all worshipers. A devout Muslim, she's worshiping something, isn't she? So is a materialist Muslim who doesn't actually believe the Quran but goes through the motions in order to keep his business afloat. Both believe something, right? Do they believe the same thing? Are they worshiping the same thing? The devout Mormon is a worshiper of something, right? So is the nominal Mormon mom whose kids are her life's obsession. Both are worshiping something. Are they worshiping the same thing? The devout Eastern Orthodox priest, he's a worshiper of something. So is the Eastern Orthodox priest who uses his position to gain power and influence in the Russian government, right? They're both worshiping something, something different, and they're both the same religion, supposedly. The devout Roman Catholic widow, she's a worshiper. So is the formerly non-denominational 27-year-old who is now a Roman Catholic podcaster, getting paid by the church to strawman Protestantism and draw away naive young people by using YouTube's algorithms. Are they both worshiping something? They are both worshiping something. Are they worshiping the same thing? It's hard to tell. The atheist is a worshiper. The gym rat is a worshiper. The sports nut is a worshiper. The Bitcoin bro is a worshiper. The sex addict is a worshiper. You see, we're all fundamentally worshiping something when we order our lives and our value structures and our life goals and the way that we understand the world around what we believe to be the highest good, right? So everybody is doing this worshiping in some way or another. Therefore, everyone is religious in their devotion to what they worship. Now, a government, follow with me now, a government recognizing that everybody in this society, they're all worshipers, could say that there's only one right way to worship. The government could say that because it's actually true, isn't it? There's only one right way to worship. And they could say that right way to worship is blank. You just fill in the blank. Did you have something to...
Wouldn't that be communism?
No. I mean, yes, but also other governments as well. So just now continue with this experiment with me. This government, or we're constituting a government. We're recognizing, okay, there's lots of false ways to worship. Very clearly, there's lots of false ways to worship. There's one right way to worship. It's this, and so therefore everyone must worship this way. And you could mandate that everyone go to that church where they're worshiping in that way, and they have to be there on time for Jose, and that they stand when everyone else is standing, and they kneel when everybody else is kneeling, and they could have monitors that walk around. This is for Dustin and me, to make sure that everybody's singing when they're supposed to be singing, because that's a part of worship, right? There's only one way to worship, and you've got to be standing when you're supposed to be standing, and kneeling when you're supposed to be kneeling, and singing when you're supposed to be singing. We need someone to monitor that, don't we? And that they're listening to the sermon too. Nobody's falling asleep. Nobody's looking at their phone. Everybody's listening. Their eyes are up. And they could even have a test after the sermon to make sure that you retain the information. Right? If we want everyone worshiping the right way, is there any length how far are we allowed to go? We could do all of these things, couldn't we? To make sure that everybody is worshiping the right way. Would this be, if we did all of these measures, would that be an effective means in measuring true worship? That's astounding. No. Why? It's the heart. Right. All the Pharisees in the room said, yes, you can do that. But obviously we can't do that. Worship is not a matter of all of these externals. It's a matter of the conscience. Because you can be doing all of those things externally with a rotten heart. Worship is not a matter of externals. It's a matter of the conscience. True worship is a heart issue. So government could outlaw, on the other hand, any various expressions of worship. And they could coerce other expressions of worship, but can they actually govern the heart? Can the government govern the conscience? No. Who are we accountable to as human beings when it comes to our conscience? God. Who do we answer to on Judgment Day? God. For the government to restrict worship, then, is to attempt to take the place of God or speak on behalf of God. And once the government sees itself in the place of God, then the government is on the path to tyranny, whether that be communism or any other various forms of tyranny.
Well, it also takes you back to Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar, where he
Yeah.
said that they had to worship him.
Great example.
And
Anybody hear what Kelly said? Is it Daniel and
Shadrach, Abednego.
the three youths? Nebuchadnezzar said they had to bow down to the golden image. They said no. And clearly God said you don't have to. So, good example. What we're seeing is that if the government does try to mandate worship, then that is the government trying to take the place of God, because that is something that regards a human and God. A government that acknowledges, on the other hand, a government that acknowledges that God alone is Lord of the conscience is a government that recognizes its place underneath God. So if the government tries to rule the conscience, the government is attempting to take the place of God. If a government says, no, the conscience is between man and God, that government is rightfully placing themselves underneath God, which is why we in America say one nation under God. Thank you. A government under God's greater rule is more likely to be a just government. Government tries to take the place of God, tyranny. Government is put in their rightful place underneath God, justice. You see the difference between the two? So the first leg on which religious liberty stands is the leg of the conscience. Because God is Lord of the conscience belongs to God. Conscience is accountable to God. Conscience is not accountable to the state. God rules the conscience through his word and his spirit. The church helps to guide and correct the conscience, but this is not under the state's realm of influence. Any questions on that issue of the conscience? There's so much more we could talk about there. Other observations? Yes, Christian.
I was thinking about like Israel
Uh-huh.
wasn't like tyrannical. Like God was.
The kingdom of Israel in the promised land.
Yeah.
Very good.
Israel.
Yes.
Like is that like the only exception?
Who was their king
Depends on the generation.
at the very beginning? God. God was their king. So when all of those laws were established in Israel, they were established with God as king. And then when when you have the kings actually enter later on, it is kings who are meant to represent the people before God. So there is definitely a God as king over them. God wrote those laws, gave the laws to the people. Great observation, but we're not that this point. The church could be called the New Israel, and so the church could be thought of as being ruled under that way, but we cannot say the United States is that way. We cannot say the nation of Israel is even that way at this point. So, John, did you have something? It's okay. Annie? Yeah, what I'm talking about is, should the government have the right to coerce any person in the land towards one particular religion? Make a law. Yeah, make a law with some sort of punishment for breaking that law. Exactly, right. Good example. Go ahead. No, this is a weedy issue. Right, that's a moral issue, not a worship issue. I'm not talking about moral issues. The government, yeah, I think that how the government establishes what her laws would be is a separate subject. It's related, but it is a separate subject. So we're looking at the moral laws are different than the coercive laws requiring how we worship or what we worship. John, did you want to? Right, so we're trying to determine what makes a just society. A just society is a society where people's individual rights are protected, right? So your right to life is protected in a just society. Your right to not have your property stolen from you, protected under a just society. That is, a just society would make sure that your rights and your family's rights were protected. I think the question that we're discussing is, should that government, I think we all can agree that a government has the right to come to laws about murder and theft and putting others' lives in danger and that sort of thing. We can agree to that. The question is, does the government have the right to mandate what form of worship you? Uh-huh. Okay. The spread of Islam in America is not related to the building of mosques. It's related to immigration of Muslims from other countries. So that's an immigration issue. It's not. How many people do you know were converted to Islam by hearing of the Quran? It's really rare. It happens through most of what happens with Islam is, so for instance, when I was in Zambia last, in Lusaka, met a guy who was Muslim. Why? Because he didn't have a job. A Muslim shopkeeper from Pakistan, because the Zambian government was allowing more Pakistani immigrants to come in because they were running businesses and they have money coming in from Pakistan. So Zambia says, okay, that's all right. Opens up a shop, says, if you want to work in my shop, you've got to be Muslim. He's poor, he's starving. I'll be Muslim to do that. So he converts to Islam. I think a government, that's a separate subject. The government does have the authority in order to protect and provide for the security of its own people and its own economy and so on, can say, we're restricting immigration, or we're doing this for immigration or that for immigration, but that's a separate issue than, do the people that live here have the right to worship as they want? Do you see how that's a separate issue? Okay, we'll get to that. We'll come back to that in just a little bit. Brent, go ahead.
Sorry, this question may further
Okay.
when you were kind of describing, different, archetypes of people and different things that they worship, that kind of like brought everything under the scope of like what worship is.
Yeah, worship is everything, right?
And now you're
Right.
kind of distinguishing between like a moral subject and like something that is specifically like categorized as worship.
Right. So let me just ask you this: if I would say that someone who is materialistic and whose life's ambition is to get rich, for instance, that's religious in some way, right? You can see that they order their life around the accumulation of money. That's it's idolatry, is what Jesus would call it, in the same way that Jesus would call the worship of the Baals idolatry. So it's idolatry is idolatry. It's false worship of some sort. Can the government stop people from trying to get rich?
No, but I mean, well,
I mean, they could. Yeah, but you see what I'm getting at? Like, yeah. Susie, does you have something to add? Uh-huh.
Would an example of that be like Malaysia, where anyone who's Malay must be Muslim? You can only be not Muslim if you're from another country.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I think what these guys are getting at is the government can or should worship or restrict harmful or what the government believes to be harmful religions from entering. So I think Islam is one that's popular because of what you guys are watching. But I think if you look at just some of the other ones, what's very close to Islam theologically? Jehovah's Witness, very, very close to Islam theologically.
I'm not even being in Islam.
Okay.
But I mean, maybe to further clarify, like what I'm getting at is, I mean, you described like say like a Bitcoin, bro. Something
Right.
like okay, there's like
Yeah.
a pursuit of wealth. So
Yeah.
the government's not, what he's worshiping. That's speaking to like what his conscience, his desire is.
Yes.
And we say no, the government can't regulate that. The government can't coerce him to desire something.
Right.
Else. But it does. I mean, it does regulate kind of the material objects.
Right.
That are
Yes.
involved.
The government also regulates churches in some ways. The government, as Brad mentioned earlier, can regulate where churches are allowed to be built. This church that we're in right now has had a history of highly restrictive measures from the city of La Mesa. You see just across the street with All People's Church is in a massive lawsuit with the city of San Diego right now because their religious liberty is being restricted. Some people in the city of San Diego says, yes, their religious liberty should be restricted because that would be a traffic issue for us. And the church is saying, no, our religious liberty should not be restricted because we have a First Amendment right. So it is an ongoing debate. So when I say that there should be religious liberty or Baptist belief in religious liberty, it doesn't mean religious liberty without any limits. Because, of course, we could come up with some really weird religions where, well, my religion involves worship of this made-up God of some sort, and in order to worship my God the way I want to worship my God, I have to go in front of elementary schools and kill a goat and put the head, on my head, and then lick the liver and stuff like that. Like, I'm just trying to be absurd, as absurd as I can. The government can restrict that, right? Because there is the order of the society around them is affected by that particular religion. So yes, the government can restrict some religion. The question is how much can the government do that? But what we're saying as Baptists, what I'm kind of getting at here is there is a reason why religious liberty is a value for us. So let's get to the second point on why it's a value for us.
Before you go there, though,
Go ahead.
couldn't you say then, because you're in the United States, the biggest religious liberty stoppage or whatever you want to call it, when the government stepped in and said no,
Mhm.
is the pandemic. You got to go back to the pandemic, and nobody can come to church.
Right.
Nobody.
And the government lost that one.
Throughout the whole United
The government had to do quite a few payouts to churches who sued them for being unfairly targeted for how we worship. We were told we couldn't sing. I have a letter in my office from the county, a cease and desist order, that we disobeyed as a church. But that's okay. We were small enough to where we didn't have to get really shut down the same way that like Grace Community Church got shut down or one of the Calvary churches got shut down. Let's go on to the next issue. What I want you to understand out of this is why we as Baptists hold religious liberty to be a value for us. Why is this a distinctive? How do Baptists understand the nature of the church? How does the Bible describe entrance into the church? Faith, baptism, what are some other? Okay, faith, our testimony, which is an expression of our faith. Eating together. Yeah, there you go. Oh, meeting together. So how do we enter into the church? How do we become to belong to the church? I've heard faith and baptism.
Through grace.
Okay, great. God's grace. So we have God interacting with this somehow.
Well, he's completely sovereign. We would say completely sovereign over salvation.
Okay.
All aspects of salvation.
So election then.
And he's the one that gives us grace that allows us to believe.
Right.
So
Okay.
therefore, no human person can force themselves to become a member of Christ.
Okay.
And
Right.
I can't force Nathan to become.
Right.
But the way our church is built or it's set up, we accept people in.
Yeah. So we come into the church from God's point of view through election, predestination, regeneration, being born again, faith. And we're starting to see it from our point of view now. Faith and baptism. So all of those are all having to do with entering into the church. Salvation comes by hearing, hearing by the word of the Lord. Anything else anybody wants to add to that? How we come to belong to the church? Would you, by vote, there you go. That is the authority of the church, the church exercising their authority. So if entrance into the church then is a spiritual matter, can we agree that's probably spiritual? That this is a spiritual issue? Can the state coerce belonging to the church? So this is kind of coming at this from another issue. Can the state coerce election? Can the state coerce regeneration, being born again? Can the state coerce faith? Try. The state could mandate that every child be taught the gospel, but that's as far as we could go as Baptists, right? That's state-sponsored VBS. And I wouldn't be shocked that Mississippi or Arkansas hasn't tried this. Go ahead. Yeah? We're getting to that. You're yeah. So this issue of how we understand the church as Christians, as Baptists, this is why religious liberty is distinctly Baptist. Because of our understanding of who and what the church is, we understand that entrance into the church can't be coerced. A government with the very best of intentions could not ensure that all people would be saved. And we as Baptists understand that if you're saved, you belong to the church, or you belong to the church because you're saved. However, if you were to come at this with an unbiblical understanding of baptism, you could get some pseudo results. If you say, as we do, that you enter in the church through baptism, well, then you could baptize unbelievers and then mandate they belong to the church. Probably the easiest way to do this would be to baptize babies. This is what Rome did in order with their state church. Geneva did this under Calvin. This happened with Lutheranism in Germany and in Sweden. The Church of England did this. Spain did this. Russia did this with Peter the Great in Eastern Orthodoxy. It's a tale as old as time. The best way to get state influence into the church is through infant baptism. It's the gateway drug for the state's influence into the church. And what happens to churches when this happens? Does it grow in effectiveness? Does the church grow in her effectiveness? It devalues baptism for sure, but the church usually is weakened and sickened by having a mixed church. So one of the strengths of Baptists, in our understanding of the church, is that we have what's called regenerate church membership. So everybody who is a member has gone through a rigorous process of determining whether or not that person is actually a Christian. But in churches where there is infant baptism, the believers are mixed with the unbelievers in the church, and so the church is weakened in that regard. And that's, yeah, so you don't have a choice whether or not how you belong to the church. So the church loses her effectiveness. When the church and state are married in this way, the church is corrupted, her prophetic role is diminished, and the state takes those responsibilities which previously belonged to the church. So we were talking about, how would we correct someone? How would we encourage someone? The state is taking those responsibilities that previously belonged to the church. In fact, this has happened historically, and it happens. When it happens, it suppresses minority religions. This is where Baptists come from, right? The Baptists were in England, where it was illegal to be Baptist, and so we had to leave England. That's part of our history, because the state and the church were combined in a way that was weakening the church. The gospel was being weakened. True churches were trying to be birthed out of this, but when were oppressed by the government. You can see why Baptists would have Christian liberty or religious liberty as the value for us. I'll read you, that might be distracting, I won't read that. So we enter the church, we understand, and this is what we teach, this is what we talk about a lot. We enter the church through salvation by faith, not by coercion, certainly not through infant baptism. So the protection of religious liberty acknowledges this, and so prevents the government from overstepping its bounds in establishing a state church, which is really not a church. So far we've only been dealing with the government side of the issue. Any comments on that before we move on? Is that making sense? Dustin, do you have anything you want to add to that? No? Okay. So we've looked at the conscience issue, why the government cannot coerce you to worship one God or another because of matters of the conscience, and also because of our understanding of who the church is. We as Baptists would say, well, the government certainly can't force salvation upon anyone, and so force people into the church. Go ahead.
Question. I think that seems pretty clear, but when you go back to the word you used at the beginning, promotion,
Yeah.
that seems to be a little less clear. So
Okay.
should the government promote Christianity in general, do things to promote, and the opposite side of that, to not promote
Yeah.
other religions?
Yeah.
Or should it not?
I think that is part of the discussion that we're open to. Even as Baptists, should just on that issue, suppose we were to start a Christian school, and we're in a state where there's a voucher system, right? So some of those states with voucher systems allow those vouchers to go towards Christian schools. Is that a religious liberty issue? Because it's sort of the promotion, state-sponsored, tax-supported promotion of some sort of religion. Most of the states that allow for that say, okay, whatever religious school. So we're going to give the same amount to someone going to a Baptist school, a Catholic school, and a Pentecostal school, and I don't know, whatever else, a Muslim school. So the government is saying, if we're giving it to the Baptists, we're going to give it to the Mormons as well. And so that's how they solve that religious liberty issue, but it's still an issue because it is promotion of some sort. So let's look at this from the church's position for a minute. Should we as the church, so ignoring what's happening in this government for a minute, should we as the church seek to gain earthly power so that we could influence what's happening or control the state? Should the church seek to gain enough earthly power to control the state? Jose?
Well, I don't know if seek is very charging, but
Okay.
there's opportunities. I think it'd be foolish not thinking
Okay.
that seek seems like, you're
All right. All right. Good. So that would be like a mission issue, is what you're saying. Like the church's mission is not to control the state, but hey, if one of our church members were to become governor, that'd be a good thing. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sort of. I mean, you have Joe Biden and J.D. Vance.
I was gonna say, when you come back to elections of the presidents, Kennedy ran on the first Irish Catholic.
Yes, he did.
Catholic.
Yeah. So, but I want to get back. So that you're right. That is so individuals. That is one issue. But should the church is kind of what I'm pressing with this question. So should this be a part of the church's mission to gain earthly power in order to get what we want here on earth? Jim's saying no. That's a good answer. All right. So if we were to do this, we would recognize this could effectively remove religious liberty for a number of people. But if we think we have the right religion and the right form of worship and the right doctrine, shouldn't we work to restrict what we believe to be wrong forms? That's when it gets kind of touchy. Because we can say, no, the government should never do that, but then should the church seek to control the government to do that? That's another issue. So let's put it to paper. Suppose of a voting population in a small town in Missouri, you have 60% of that population are Baptists. And that's probably true of some small town in Missouri. And they put all Baptists on that Missouri City Council. Would it be right for those Baptists who are running that city council to say no more building permits for the Presbyterians or the Lutherans, aside from the First Amendment issue? Because that's an issue. It would be illegal. But I would offer that Baptists would know better than to do that. Why? Because we understand that as much as we believe the Scriptures the way we do, we could be wrong. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13, we see through a mirror dimly. All of us do. All Christians. He's speaking of all Christians. None of us sees the full picture of Christianity perfectly. Even the apostle says, this is Paul himself, I know in part. He's understanding, I don't have a perfect understanding of Christianity, and he's writing books of the Bible for us. That's humility. For us to say, no, but I know, Paul, you didn't understand it, but we do. We need to understand if his understanding is imperfect, our understanding is imperfect. So when it comes to fellow Christians, in love, we give other Christians the benefit of the doubt. We recognize that not only are our bodies fallen and sinful, but so are our minds fallen. Yes, we seek a daily renewing of the mind, but where was I in that? But we seek the Lord, we pray, we read the Scriptures, we study, but we also sin every day, don't we? And so we should humbly and cautiously not put too much confidence in our own understanding of right worship even. So we would say that, yes, we'll grant those building permits to the Lutherans. Even though we're a whole city council full of Baptists, we'll allow the Lutherans to build their building and the Presbyterians to build their building. Should our city council, though, allow a oneness Pentecostal church to have a building permit?
If you let the others, you have to let them.
Okay. Others?
Be fair. Oh, I mean, if you let the
Oneness Pentecostals are non-Trinitarian Pentecostals.
I get it. If you let the Catholics and the Lutherans and the Pentecostals, whatever, or Episcopalians have their permit, then you have to let them have their permit.
So Kelly says they have to have because of
For fairness.
fairness. All right. Other.
No, I disagree because you can take that so far and say, could the Satanists?
Yep. Good question. Right.
And then at that point, I would say no.
All right.
A lot of it.
Satanists are breaking like government laws by doing like human sacrifice.
Right. What if the Satanist way of worship was just playing chess? Like they bought a building and they just played chess. So they're not doing anything that's harming anyone, but you do know that they're not harming anyone physically, but spiritually they're like inviting demons into your town.
But define harming them, because there are plenty of people
This is the issue that your city council would have to deal with.
that are part of different groups.
That same city council is going to approve casinos. They're going to approve bars. They're going to approve.
They're Baptist.
That's right. Baptist city councils. I grew up in a town that was dry town, like all the way until I was out of high school. So
Been them in Oklahoma, but they're going away.
they are. Yeah.
But for the most part, so maybe you're going to be in that one little city in Missouri or Oklahoma, like Enid or something that's still dry or whatever. But I think the difficult thing for us is we always are looking through American eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Religious liberty came from Baptists from the 1600s that were getting kicked around from one country to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And they came here and they found Anglicans up in the north, Congregationalists down in the south, and nobody
The other way
wanted
around.
to
Yeah.
or others,
Yeah.
opposite or whatever, and they still didn't have it. 9 out of the 13 colonies, you had to have a profession of Christ if you wanted to be a public servant.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think as Baptists, we would just say, you would be praying for these.
Here's your building permit. I'm going to pray for you. Okay.
And then go into that church and go, I had to do this, but we need to be praying for these people.
Okay.
We can't be like Jonah and say no.
Well,
Because God may be sovereign.
yeah,
Have another
that's true. All right. Now I want to hear. Does anybody want to keep the Oneness Pentecostals from building their church? There's 2, 3, 4.
Make them, they have to be able to affirm the Nicene Creed.
Okay.
And maybe
All right. Now hold on a second, because we wouldn't be allowed to build a Baptist church if we were in an Eastern Orthodox run town.
I was going to say, maybe we make a special provision for the Eastern Orthodox.
Maybe they can be on one side.
No, what I'm saying is there are people who believe that Baptists are outside of Nicene creedal Christianity.
But this is our country.
Okay. Right. John, would you like to comment on that?
Hold on.
Okay.
different countries. Yeah, I'm not asking for that.
Right. Yeah. So we are. What we're talking about here is a Baptist distinctive. Why is this a Baptist distinctive? And I think that's what we're missing, because part of the issue is we have thought of religious liberty for so much time is a constitutional issue. We value religious liberty because it's in the First Amendment, but it's in the First Amendment because of Baptists. And that's what's fascinating. And we've kind of forgotten about that history. Thomas Jefferson, who put that in there, him and James Madison, both from Virginia, heavily influenced by Baptist Leland. What's Leland's first name? John Leland. Leland. Not John Lehman, another Baptist political philosopher. But John Leland heavily influenced Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, so that this ends up in the First Amendment. This is a Baptist issue that has become an American issue that now Baptists are confused about. So, yes, go ahead, Kelly.
Okay. Getting back to the first, the Oneness Pentecostal guy, whoever it is.
Okay, yeah.
They're allowed to have it.
All right.
But they have to stay on the east side of the tracks.
Okay, there you go. Oh, my goodness.
Well, there has to be an essential definition of what's religion
Okay,
versus the chess club.
right. Right.
too. So
It-
even with that,
And I think that's the issue that we're running into now in America is as the church's witness weakens in many areas, and as the church becomes less about truly seeking the Lord and more about entertaining people, I think one of the issues is that people see what has been given to the church because of religious liberty. You got tax-free status, pastors get a housing allowance, and then there are mega church pastors with 5 different houses who are using their housing allowance on million-dollar houses, and it gets corrupted. And people see that as a problem, so they actually start inventing religions in order to get some of these same benefits. So it's complicated, isn't it? So just to kind of get to it, the question that city council is going to have to wrestle with is they have to draw a line somewhere as to which religions are allowed to get a building permit for that town. Eventually, in this hypothetical town, it sounds like there's a lot of religions here. In the small town, the 60% Baptist. But anyway, it's a complicated subject. Does everybody see that it's a complicated subject? We understand why religious liberty is a Baptist value and why it's complicated when it gets into a country as large as our country is, with as much immigration from all parts of the world, with all of these different religions coming in ways that many communities can't really handle or even process how we're going to deal with this. And that's probably it's one of the issues that we've been seeing over the last decade as America is that has become a voting issue for even non-Christians, because what they are used to is kind of getting muddied in many ways. The last thing I want to leave you with, this is very short. As Christians in this age, we need to remember this is not our home, right? So as much as we love our nation, as much as we love our hypothetical small town in Missouri, it's not our home. We are exiles here. So in 1 Peter, we're described as exiles. In 1 Corinthians, when we're compared to the Israelites, we're not compared to the Israelites in the land. We're compared to the Israelites who are on the way to the land. Nowhere in the New Testament are we described as right now having dominion over all. Just not there. Paul says that they will come. We will one day judge the world, he says. One day we will judge angels. So that day is coming when we will have that type of dominion that some Christians want now. But it's not here yet. In the meantime, our role is not to exercise judgments on others for the way that they worship. We understand God's judging those who are outside the church. They belong to him. Our responsibility is those who are inside the church. We're accountable to one another and then ultimately to God. So he has sent us as Christians to bring the good news to those people, to be salt and light to them, but not to rule over them. Once God saves them and brings them into the church under Christ's rule, then we have more influence, but only once they're in voluntary covenant with us. All right? Any comments before I pray? Yes, Jose.
Real quick, it's interesting though, if in the beginning we're assuming certain standards to then face the standards of the nation. I don't know if that's really where we're also getting the standard of 5, which allow for 5 specifically what we're trying to do in nation. So I think that's really
Right.
all it is before we can go.
Where do we get the values of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness?
Yeah, because we assume those to then go from there and be going into trying to build a society.
Yeah.
But I feel like we skipped that first part.
Oh, yeah, that was just to get your mind going. Yeah, that was just, that was to get the juices flowing so we can get to the subject of religion in that society. Yeah, good question. That's a fun subject too, though. That's political science. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That was fun. I would encourage you to read the Baptist Faith and Message statement on religious liberty. I'd read it to you right now, but you would miss what I was saying. Read it so you can see it, highlight it, look at those scriptures that are underneath it. So you can go to our church website and look at our statement of faith, go down to the religious liberty paragraph, and just work your way through it. A lot of the statements in there are really old, like from the 1600s, and they're just carried straight over into the year 2000 into our statement of faith because they're going all the way back. They're rooting themselves into what Baptists have always understood to be the role of state when it comes to religion. So let's pray. Lord, thank you for keeping me from coughing until the very end. Excuse me. We thank you that as we process our way through these things, we're seeing you as ruler over our hearts. We're reminded of our accountability to you. Let us not take that lightly. Let our fear of you be what motivates us to Christ. Let the fear of God be what drives our church to proclaim the gospel to the lost. And let us not remember, Lord, what our role is for one another and in our evangelism to the world. In Jesus' name, amen. Excuse me.